Good morning, and thank you for joining our side event. My name is Ji-hwan Bae. I'm postdoc researcher at Gyeonggi University, and it's my pleasure to moderate today's side event. Today we have 5 speakers. Before starting the presentations, I would like to briefly introduce today's speakers. And first, let me introduce 2 special guests who attend from France. Dr. Jean-François Susana, INE's Vice President of International Research Policy, attended. Thank you very much for attending our side events. And Dr. Amit Albita, Project Manager of CNRS, the French National Center for Scientific Research, attended. On behalf of the KCP team, thank you. And as a key member of a Korean Carbon Project team, Dr. Cherin Park from Seoul National University and Dr. Jungi Hyun from Gyeonggi University attended. And Professor Ga-young Yu from Gyeonggi University, who is the leader of the KCP carbon absorption team, attended. And Professor Soo-jong Jung from Seoul National University, who KCP leader, is also attending the floor. And before this presentation, Professor Jung, would you give us some opening remark before we start?
Good morning, everyone. This is Soo-jong Jung. I'm the professor of climate science and the director of Climate Technology Center at the Seoul National University and the PI of the Korea Carbon Project. This year, we just start to develop the high resolution, the monthly 1 kilometer national scale CO2 and methane map. We just start this project this year, and we believe this project will help Korea to achieve carbon neutrality. Please enjoy our session. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Professor Jung. So let's start this side event now. Our fourth speaker is Dr. Cherin Park. Dr. Park is now Associate Researcher Scholar in Climate Technology Center at SNU. Today she will introduce background of Korea Carbon Project. The title is Introductions of KCP, Development of National Scale Hybrid Inventory Based Greenhouse Gases Information System. Please welcome her with a big applause.
Hi, I'm Cherin Park from Seoul National University, and I'm a project manager of Korea Carbon Project. So since this session is focusing on a specific part of Korea Carbon Project, in this presentation, I'm going to briefly provide the overall introduction of our project. So to begin, I would like to give some background of our project. So according to NDC, Korea plans to reduce its greenhouse gas emissions by 30% by 2030. It's quite challenging goal for Korea because Korea needs to reduce its greenhouse gas emissions by 4.17% per year. It's a significant reduction rate when compared to other countries. So to reach 2030 NDC and ultimately to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050, Korea government enacted Carbon Neutrality Basic Act. And according to Carbon Neutrality Basic Act, Korea government is required to create and manage special temporary information on greenhouse gases, emission, and absorptions at the national and also for the local scale. In this context, our project KCP is established, and the main objective of our project is to create a detailed observation-based national special temperature emissions and absorption inventory, and also to develop a platform that provides our greenhouse gas information data. This project is set to run for 5 years, starting from this year, and involves 20 institutions led by Seoul National University. So to make detailed spatial temperature at a monthly 1 kilometer resolution of observation-based greenhouse gas information data, our project is divided into 7 detailed topics. So first, since our project is fundamentally centered around observation data, there is observation system. And using this observation system, there is 3 parts for calculating current carbon emissions and absorption inventory. Then there is 2 parts for estimating future carbon emission and absorption inventory by future carbon scenario. And lastly, there is a part for policy evaluation to evaluate zero carbon policy of Korea. So as I mentioned, this is the first year of our project. So in this year, we developed high spatial temperature inventory of carbon emission and uptake for Seoul as a first test bed of this project. So here I bring some example of carbon emission and uptake inventory for Seoul that we generated for 2022. And as you can see here, there is high spatial temperature variations in carbon emission and uptake within Seoul area. And this result emphasizing the importance of high resolution of carbon inventory for effective management of carbon emissions. So to facilitate the development of an effective strategy for achieving carbon neutrality, our final goal is to expand the high resolution inventory that we developed for Seoul to encompass the entire nation of Korea as shown here. And as presented, there are various research topics in our project, and it needs various multiple types of data. So as you can see here, not only participating university and institution, there are many non-funded collaborative institutions to provide statistical or observation data for our project. So in this session, the upcoming presentation will concentrate on monitoring current carbon absorption aspect of our project. So this is the end of my presentation. Thank you for your listening.
Thank you, Dr. Cherin Park. Dr. Park's presentations include the key research background of the following KSP team's research. And if you have any questions about detail or carbon emissions study, please ask in the Q&A time. And our next speaker is Professor Ga Young-yu from Kyunghee University. Professor Yu is now team leader in carbon absorption team in KCP. His title is Harnessing the Power of KCP's Technologies for National Carbon Absorption Verifications. Please welcome Ho with a big applause.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Bae, for introducing me today. And I'm very happy to have this chance to share our efforts to develop KCP's technologies for national carbon absorption verification. And thank you again for coming to this event. And I'm sorry for this very large space, but discussion-friendly space, I hope. So, okay, so feel free to give any questions at the Q&A session. Okay, this is my contents, and let me remind you of the ultimate goal of Korea Carbon Project, which was already explained by Dr. Cherin Park. And our ultimate objective is to produce a map of monthly carbon net budget data for 1 kilometer spatial scales, and the temporal scale is monthly basis in whole South Korea. And today I'm going to talk about the carbon absorption part because I am the leader of the carbon absorption team. And before I start into my presentation, I just want to emphasize the importance of MRV and actionable data for everybody. Okay, so MRV, the importance of MRV is more important than ever because we are waiting for the first global stocktake. It will be published very soon. So we need to know where we are in terms of carbon neutrality, and nationally and at the same time globally. So that's why MLV is getting more and more important from now on. And the other important part is actionable data. Then what is actionable data? This could be one kind of definition. Actionable data is the information that gives enough insight for the scientists, for the policymakers, and for the citizens. So it could be anyway, but raw data itself, it has power for the scientists, but probably little power for the citizens, little power for the policymakers. So we need to think about the importance of actionable data. Okay, so let me introduce you the current state of Korea National Greenhouse Gas Inventory in the LULUCF sector. And I think the situation is probably very similar in every country. And South Korea LULUCF sector includes forest, grassland, cropland, wetland, and settlement. And see that forest and all grassland a little bit. So in Korea, carbon absorption is almost all conducted by forest sector. And wetland, cropland, they are actually carbon emission sector. But actually, if we consider soil, then we can convert that emission sector to the absorption sector. So anyway, this is how where we are, the Korean LULUCF carbon absorption. So I would say that forest sector, we follow about 1.5 tier 1.5. Agriculture, I would say 0 because we never counted soil carbon change. We are expecting to do it in the near future, but we don't know. But currently, no, just 0. Wetland, we don't even know the exact carbon amount, exact carbon dynamics. And urban, we try very hard to include it in the LULUCF, but still no. So this is where we are. So that means our current LULUCF carbon absorption inventory has large sources of uncertainties. And there are probably lots of uncharted, unaccounted carbon absorption bodies. But we still don't know where they are and how much we can more absorb. So that is the thing I would like to tell you with this slide. And then let me remind you of another part. So to decrease national inventory, greenhouse gas inventory uncertainty, that's very important. Managing uncertainty, very important. But MRV is also important for the private sector because there are lots of carbon offset projects and some official agency, they would like to approve it. But last year, as many of you already have known, The Guardian reported that 94% of forest-based carbon offset credited by Vera are phantom credits. Very striking news last year. But the reason for that, the phantom, is that they set up their baseline too low, making the amount of offset over. So that's why we can say that's phantom credit. So Vera admitted that, and they promise they will develop more credible baseline. But actually, this mission is for everybody. We need to set up very good very robust baseline, even for the nation, even for the company, everything. Okay. Okay, so then how can our KCP's technology innovate MRV? So our ultimate goal is grid-based, monthly-based, carbon net balance, meaning that we will improve our current inventory into tier 3 level. So that is our ultimate goal. And if I concentrate only on the carbon absorption, we need to set up a very good measurement network to improve the accuracy of national inventory. And at the same time, we need to have the information on the local basis. So in the middle panel, we set up this kind of measurement network in terms of carbon absorption. And this measurement network covers 4 forest sites, 6 agricultural sites, and 1 urban site. So we hope to cover all different kinds of land cover, and we hope to cover the whole geological location of our South Korea. Okay, so then you can notice that the number of measurement observation site is very limited in urban area. So currently we have 1 observation site. Actually, we call it super site, and I'm going to explain you why we call it super. We have 1 super site in Seoul metropolitan, and that is in the middle of the Seoul. So we would like to add 2 more super sites within Seoul, 1 in the north, 1 in the south. So then probably that super measurement site will relieve the uncertainty of the complicated carbon dynamics, complicated pattern of carbon absorptions in the urban area. Okay, so then this is the picture why we call the site as super, because we measure so many things. So at the multi-different levels. So we collect data from the remote sensing, we collect data from the eddy tower, and we collect from the ground using LICOR or anything else, chamber systems to get the soil flux, soil temperature, water content, and the ecosystem gross primary production. So anyway, to know the net carbon absorption from the site, we try to get as many raw data as possible and tries to integrate, coordinate to get the actionable, to make the data actionable. Okay. So, nobody wear the t-shirt, but we have t-shirt there, and we will give you as a gift. Our t-shirt includes this cute picture on the back, and if you take there's a QR code on the t-shirt, and then you will be directed to our website. Okay, so this is big picture. In the future, we will get lots of raw data, and raw data, it's not actually raw. Raw data should be validated. Raw data should be quality controlled. So all the good data will be collected in our by the power of our team, and then we will try to think about how to make this data actionable. And this kind of topic will be dealt with in our discussion session after our whole presentation. Okay, and this is the tentative result. So as Dr. Park already explained, this is our first year of the project, and the absorption team produced this map showing the grid-based dynamic changes in carbon absorption. But here is the preliminary result, and the data, the result will be validated with our supersite data. So hopefully we will get this to the whole nationwide data in the future after 5 years. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Professor Ga-young Yu. Through these presentations, we were able to catch the core visions of KCP's carbon absorption team and ongoing research items currently in progress. And more detailed research progress will be shared our next speakers, Dr. Jun-gi Hyun. Dr. Hyun is core member of our KCP team. He will present ongoing multi-mission project in KCP's carbon absorption teams. And his title is Carbon Absorption Reimagined, exploring the uncharted potential of urban greenery. Please welcome him with a big applause.
Hi, my name is Jun-gi Hyun, and I am a postdoc researcher at Gyeonggi University. Today, I'm glad to share a crucial topic in our fight against climate change. In this presentation, I will show you our team's progress and plans for measuring, verifying, and reporting urban greenery's carbon absorption inventory. Furthermore, I also want to share our effort to increase carbon absorption in urban environment. As Professor Yu showed, the urban greenery, which include fragmented small greeneries, city park, street trees, and private garden, are not fully considered in South Korea's greenhouse gas inventory. There are two main reasons for that. First, credible time series data on the changes in urban greenery's area is or rare. Second, we don't know exactly how much of carbon absorbed by trees, shrubs, and grasses in the urban environment. To solve the first problem, our team built high-resolution time series data on the changes in the area of urban greeneries. Using airborne image, LiDAR, and machine learning techniques, we produce a high-resolution tree cover map for Suwon City in South Korea. The left figure is an original version of land cover map of South Korea, and the right figure is a newly developed tree cover map in our research team. The green color is planting cover, and the red color is the building. You can see that the new tree cover map provide more detailed information on the location and area of urban greenery. As a result of this research, we identified that total uncharted canopy cover of urban greenery is 18 square kilometer, which is 15% of the total city area. However, the airborne image and LiDAR are too expensive to build a time series map for the whole country. So we built a machine learning model that could estimate the urban tree cover with the satellite data. The high-resolution tree cover map that I showed you before slide is used as training materials. Using this model, we produced the past tree cover maps. With experience on the test bed, we will expand our target area to a national scale in KCP project. The second limitation is that we don't know how much carbon is absorbed by urban greenery. To solve this limitation, we built and run continuous observation site, super site. Furthermore, we conducted our measurement campaigns on roadside greenery. Currently, we built one continuous observation site in Namsan, in Seoul, and we And we are preparing 2 more super sites in super site. In those sites, multi-level observation will be carried out. I would like to share one key implication from our first year observations. The seasonal difference in soil respiration affected by the presence or absence of shrubs. In our super site, centered with the Edicovariance Tower, there are plots with only tree, CO, and plots with shrub growing under the tree, CU. Each area has the same tree species and same soil condition. The only difference is the presence and or absence of shrubs. This is the result of our observation. Different color indicate the different ones. In the CO site, which is only tree growth, the variance of soil respiration can be explained by soil temperature with R-square 0.6. However, in the CU site, the explanatory power of temperature decreased and the variance was larger at the same temperature. If we consider the soil water content as explanatory variable, it was not helpful in CO site, but in CO site, soil water explained a lot of variance in soil respiration. This result brought us an implication that the data on presence or absence of shrubs, understory shrub, could be helpful in decreasing the uncertainty of national absorption inventory. The importance of understory shrub can be found in roadside greenery too. This picture is a standard roadside planting system in South Korea. In an 8-meter long road, there is one tree and 79 shrubs are planted. We conducted a campaign to quantify the carbon absorption by shrubs in roadside greenery. We measured the flux with chamber in field, and we also measured the biomass change in greenhouse. This is the photo of greenhouse. As a result, in an 8-meter long roadside greenery, the shrubs absorb 2.3 kilograms of carbon per year. This is 29% of carbon absorbed by a tree, which is quite a lot. Currently, the shrubs are not counted in our greenhouse gas inventory, but considering our study, it is better to count as an absorption source as in. Yes. So based on the high resolution map data on urban greenery and observations of carbon uptake, we expected to successfully build urban greenhouse gas absorption inventory within 4 years. As we dig into the quantification of carbon absorption by urban greenery, an important question remains at the forefront of our research. The question is that how can urban greenery absorb more carbon? This inquiry is not just a scientific challenge, it's a necessity for sustainable urban development in the face of climate change. The first management practice to enhance carbon absorption in urban greenery is to increase the area of green space. Specifically, connecting the street trees with shrubs is a simple method, but it's highly effective. Beyond expanding green space, it is equally important to ensure that plants grow well. Optimal growth condition can be achieved through careful practice such as regular irrigation, the application of organic amendment, and managing soil nitrogen levels. This practice enhances the plant's ability to absorb carbon. The management of organic carbon stored in soil is an aspect we cannot afford to overlook. Within the soil matrix, clay particle can bind with organic material or form aggregate that protect them, thus shielding organic carbon from the microbial decomposition. However, our research has brought to rather concerning fact. This protective mechanism is compromised in urban environment. In this figure, the bar indicate the level of protection of soil organic carbon in different type of greenery. From the left, roadside tree with shrubs, urban park, and natural grassland. And the different pattern indicate the level of protection. The top two patterns illustrate carbon that is well protected and resistant to long-term decomposition, whereas the bottom two are indicative of carbon that is more prone to breakdown. By examining the vulnerability index, which measures the ratio of easily decomposable carbon to more stable carbon form, we can observe the pronounced vulnerability to decomposition in urban roadside tree. This underscores the need for robust urban soil management practices to prevent such potential carbon losses. To increase the storage of organic carbon in the soil, we must implement strategies, ensure that once organic carbon has entered the soil, it remains less susceptible to decomposition. The production and application of biochar from litter is one effective method. Biochar is created through pyrolysis under anaerobic conditions and is recognized by the IPCC as a viable means of promoting long-term carbon storage in soils. Furthermore, it is essential to ensure that organic matter derived from well-grown plant is incorporated back into the soil intact. In urban environment, aesthetic consideration often lead to collection and incineration of fallen leaves. This practice returns the carbon back into the atmosphere. Therefore, re-evaluating the urban management practices need to be prioritized for carbon retention in soils. Related to management practices, our recent research aimed to develop tools that guide decision makers in prioritizing where they should manage first. Drawing from a wealth of prior research, our goal is to translate the proven effectiveness of various management practices into the practical application. This study also connected with pressing question, how can we provide actionable data to policymakers? The CMPI index will enable policymakers to make decisions that effectively optimize urban landscape for carbon absorption. Using this map, we can identify where do we need to manage first. In addition to developing tools for decision maker, our research extends to assessing the multifaceted impact of these management practices. While our focus is primarily on biochar, we are evaluating its effect beyond the carbon dioxide absorption. We assess biochar's impact on non-CO2 greenhouse gas emission, as well as its various other benefits and potential drawbacks. We are looking at how it affect soil structure, soil macrofauna such as earthworm, and plant growth. We are also interested in innovative method for carbon sequestration, whose quantitative effects have not yet to be fully identified. This include the in-nest rock weathering, microbial manipulation, and clay amendment. Our recent effort involving the efficacy of in-nest rock weathering, which has the potential to directly capture the atmospheric carbon dioxide and store it in the soil for more than centuries. In conclusion, I want to reiterate the importance of accurately quantifying the carbon absorption of urban greeneries, which is cornerstone of our research. The management practices and further research we've explored today are also fundamental in bolstering this urban carbon sink. Our ongoing work at the KCP project aims to pioneer methods that not only measure but also amplify the carbon sequestration potential of urban landscape. Thank you for your time, and I expect you to engage in the panel discussion.
Thank you, Dr. Hyun. Through his presentations, we are able to confirm the overlooked carbon absorption potential of one city area. And please give Dr. Hyun a lot of applause once again. And now, two outstanding researchers will give the next presentations. Dr. Jean-Francois Susana is Inland's Vice President of International Research Policy. He has extensive expertise on the effect of global change on carbon cycle at the national, European, and the global level. Today, his title is Monitoring, Reporting, and Verifying Soil Carbon in Agriculture. Please welcome him with a big applause.
So thank you for your kind invitation. I'm really glad to discover this KCP project and to learn more on these interesting studies. So we are now moving from the urban environment to the agriculture. And as you may know, soil carbon in agriculture is a very large reservoir which could be increased, providing soil carbon sequestration. So, however, deploying these negative emissions from agricultural soils requires combining science, practices, and public policies. You can see here to the left the science-technology issue, which is highly interdisciplinary. We need to study soil and plant processes to have the greenhouse gas measurement and monitoring, just as you explained, remote sensing coupled to this, and also to have modeling and databases to support this actionable knowledge development, as you well stated. Then you need to convince farmers that they need to change their practices. And remember, there are millions and millions of farmers worldwide, so it is quite demanding to have this large-scale change. And this is about the soil management. It is also about the crop rotation, the grazing management, fertilization, soil restoration, and also agroforestry, which is one option. And then you have some support for implementation with the national, international programs, payments for ecosystem services or for carbon, value chains, decision support systems, and land use commitments. So it's really an integrated picture that we need to create, working together between the science and technology, the private sector, and the governments. Indeed, there is a large interest on this issue also because, as you explained with the Vera example, there are some voluntary carbon markets which are growing. They are in fact growing much more rapidly with forestry than with agriculture so far. But however, the potential is big. And in Europe, we observe that some projects have carbon prices up to 100 euros per ton of CO2 equivalent, although the mean is much lower. So it's important to go back to what is required to generate carbon credits. You need to have some additionality. You need also to measure, obviously, and report and verify the amounts. You need to guarantee the uniqueness of the carbon credits, which is not so easy, by the way, because some farmers, they may work with several companies, for instance. And to enable the verification in terms of net greenhouse gas emissions. So I will be talking about soil carbon, but please remember that any change should be reported and verified, taking into account the nitrous oxide, for instance, or the methane. What we see today is that those carbon markets, they are going towards what companies call insetting, meaning that the carbon credits are bought by agri-food businesses, and they are used for their social and environmental responsibility in the scope 3 of those businesses, shows that they are reducing their net emissions. So it's still not very much in use, but however, for instance, in Europe, we are developing a certification of carbon removals, and the companies tell us that when this will be done, they will enter actively in that market. So with a European-funded project, we've been surveying across 10 world regions with regional workshops and surveys in local languages how the stakeholders and the farmers see the barriers for the adoptions of changes in practices. So what the farmers tell us worldwide is that it's about income and it's about the costs of transitioning. It's very clear. It's also about the local knowledge they need. I mean, how do I change things in my own farm? So a very tailored knowledge to the local circumstances. Then the stakeholders, they have obviously broader views. You need to demonstrate not only the carbon value, but the broader societal benefits. And you need also to improve the reliability and to have some reasonable costs. And this needs to be integrated in the transitioning of the agri-food systems at large. So I would like to explain that there are some limits to what we can do with soil carbon sequestration in agriculture. It's not only big potentials, there are also limits. If you change your practices, you get a change in soil organic carbon over a finite time period, which could extend up to 30 or 50 years at a maximum, until you reach a new equilibrium. Then you will need to monitor this additional stock for several decades if you want to comply with what is needed for the national inventories. And also you need to make sure you have the right amount of fertilizers going in, or possibly biological nitrogen fixation, because you need to avoid increasing the nitrous oxide emissions. If you improve the soil carbon by applying excess fertilizer, you will also have a trade-off with increased N2O. And the water management may in some regions become a limitation also. So we have to take all this into account to make this transition successful and useful. We've been developing with some colleagues, with Pete Smith, especially a colleague at Aberdeen University, this framework, which is actually what you will hear in more details later from Ahmad. This framework, it's about how would you assemble the data to create monitoring, reporting, and verifying for soil organic carbon change. So what is on this slide is that basically you need many types of data, and it matches well what you develop in the KCP project with your notion of making data actionable. It's really the same. So let's start with the long-term experiments and benchmark sites. So with field experiments lasting 20, 40 years, you may report the way practices affect the soil carbon, and that's very useful to calibrate models. Then you have the flux data, the eddy flux covariance data, where you have the short-term CO2 fluxes affected by the environment, the climate, and by the changes in practices. That is also very useful to test your models. in terms of developing your inventory for a special field, you need to have the soil data, the climate data, the activity data. So what are farmers doing? For instance, are they exporting the crop residues or not? You need to know this to create your carbon balance. And then you have some models, so it is quite critical to have some models that are tested, calibrated, and I would say that are not too complex, because with complex models, sometimes it happens you have some error compensation. So you need to make it as simple as possible and drive it with remote sensing that verifies the activity data, create inputs to run the models, and accounts for the soil and vegetation activity. So that's really the sort of concept, and then you can verify by resampling your soils after 10 years or 20 years to check what you've been calculating is correct. So with that concept, and that will be explained by Ahmad in the next talk much better than by me, we are now integrating all this, modeling, remote sensing, soil data, and so on, and that was, I think, the first example of a country scale modeling with the group at CESBio, with Ahmad and Eric and others. And you can see that for each field, you have an estimate of the carbon gain or carbon loss. This sort of first estimate was not fully accurate, but it was a first test at country scale. So, because this is so important, because there is potential in virtually all countries worldwide, we are working with support of the European Commission to create an international research consortium on soil carbon change. So our vision, and this IRC, International Research Consortium, has been launched at the Soil Week in Madrid. It was a European event, but we had international partners already. The concept is to bring together the public sector, private sector, and the research to deliver services to facilitate the transition towards this international soil carbon storage, soil carbon sequestration. So basically, we will have in this consortium some services about monitoring, reporting, verification of soil carbon. We could discuss it a bit more. Some services about the knowledge for farmers, for stakeholders. What should they do to make the change happen? This will be available online. And also, we will develop international research program. There are several research agencies that would like to support this effort. So it is also connected with an initiative which is international, which is quite crowded with a number of members. You can see how many members, possibly 1,000 worldwide, which is called the 4 per 1,000 initiative. It was launched at the time of the Paris Agreement for Climate, and it brings together all the stakeholders that are interested by agricultural soil carbon. And you see it is supported by several ministers for agriculture worldwide. It's really an effort that is also a policy effort, really, driving this. So the International Research Consortium will complement that sort of policy side effort to develop this. So we would be very glad to talk with you in case you are interested. And please ask me or Ahmad, and we will provide you with maximum of information. And you are welcome to be part of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Susana. Your insight will help Korea Carbon Project's MRV in the agriculture sector as well as urban and forest area. Today's last speaker is Dr. Ahmad Al-Bitra, the project manager in French National Centre for Scientific Research, Paris, CNRS. He leads a team of R&D engineers who combine an array of modeling, machine learning, and remote sensing technology to answer key challenges such as soil carbon farming and urban monitoring. Today, his topic is an innovative hybrid approach for soil carbon farming, MRV. Please welcome him with a big applause.
Thank you. So agriculture provides the most important commodity for humanity, which ensures its survival. At the same time, it's 15% of the GHG emissions from anthropogenic activities. So we need to provide nature-based solutions, which are the best solutions to reduce the emissions from agriculture. My name is Ahmad Al-Bitar, and I work at CESBio Lab, and I'm from CNRS, National Center for Scientific Research. And I'll be presenting you an innovative hybrid approach for soil carbon farming, MRV, that we call AgriCarbon ICU. This is a diagram that I took from the latest report from UNEP Emission Gap Report 2023. It came out recently. And they show the different solutions for carbon dioxide removal with some criteria. I like this diagram very much because the criteria that they chose are quite well thought. And if you look at the soil carbon sequestration, which is the addition of the carbon from biomass or from amendment into the soil, which is a nature-based solution, is a very low-cost solution. And when we feel here, it's US dollar per CO2, but it's also low cost in CO2 itself. And at the same time, it has quite nice green lights in the criteria. What's missing it is scalability and ease of MRV. I thank my colleagues who presented already these concepts of MRV, so now I can easily also project. And you can understand that providing solution to compute these quantities is important for different application that Jean-François has already presented you: offsetting, carbon market, insetting, which is the reduction of emission from companies based on SBTI, and inventories. What I mean here is national inventories, as were presented in the KCP project. So today, what we think that the most important are insetting and natural inventories. We think that there is more maturation for offsetting. Jean-François presented some aspects of it: double additionality, the double counting. All these aspects need to be sorted so that we don't go into problems that were presented already for forest carbon capture. So we are speaking about adding carbon to the soil. So we need to monitor the soil carbon, right? How do we monitor it? We can take samples from the soil, but how many samples do we need? Enormously. If you count how much it costs one sample in Europe, it will be billions of dollars for covering all agriculture. I'm speaking in France for a campaign over 5 years. So it is not a reliable solution because we're consuming probably too much CO2 to measure CO2. Second, we can say remote sensing. Remote sensing, here we speak about direct remote sensing for carbon. Direct remote sensing for carbon actually does not provide information about soil carbon for big depths. It is for the surface carbon. And this is important because when we want to quantify, we need to quantify it for the higher depths. Then we can say, oh, we can do modeling. But if you do modeling without any measurement, garbage in, garbage out, very classical. It's more than this. The issue is that if we do it, the main question, baseline, quantification, quantities will be put on the table. And we go back to this issue of some companies going with ISOs or this definition of MRV that cope with real quantification. Last, we can say, oh, let's do machine learning, which is combining so many of these information that are coming from the remote sensing measurements and provide. The issue is that there, in this case, we have so many configurations and we don't control everything. What we worked on, and this is based on many of the projects we are involved in, Katpurmil, Sirkaza, Niva, the Orkaza running project with the IRC that Jean-François presented actually about all these, and Marvik that we just started, that Jean-François discussed already. Based on many of these discussions, we think that the solution would be a hybrid solution. And I think also the European Expert Commission for Soil Carbon is going to this direction, Tier 3 hybrid solution. And in our case, we are combining a Earth observation-based solution combined to parsimonious modeling. What I mean parsimonious modeling is that neither simple, neither complex. It's the right complexity for the questions we are asking. And then Bayesian approach, which enables the assimilation as a machine learning approach, assimilation of the information, but also providing the uncertainty of the information, something that has been already mentioned in these presentations. So I have a complex diagram because it's a complex process, but I won't go all the details. We just published this paper in geoscientific modeling, just accepted, and we can go there for details. I'll explain some of the aspect. It's the end-to-end processing chain. It has so first we need land cover data, simple weather data, temperature, incoming radiation, satellite, massively all the data that we can process right now in optical. Some data we're processing are not shown here, but we're also working on the planet data as 3-meter resolution. We prepare this information, and the first step we go with is from the satellite raw data, like for the observation on the ground. Satellite, we have the same thing. Raw data is not the information. You need to process it to go to relevant information. So we use the reflectances to get leaf area index, which is the percentages of leaf per meter square, which is an information that is in our modeling system. So now, once we have this information, we can inject it to our modeling system, right? And we can correct the trajectory of our modeling system. In these two steps, we're using Bayesian approach because it is massively parallelized. We're using normalized importance sampling. And second, because it provides uncertainty, which is also a criteria, which is important. So once we have this, we produce then the information. Our solution has been deposited in the Toulouse Tech Transfer, which is the transfer arm of the university and the different institutes, CNRS, INRAE, for our case. And we're working with many agro industry on this subject. Airbus, MyEasyFarm, NetCarbon, which are working on demo applications. So what comes out of our system? We come out with, let's take a budget. We have seen already this in the other presentation. The change of carbon would be equal to the change of the fluxes. Fluxes coming from vegetation, capturing the carbon, putting it in biomass. But also the soil, you have all the microorganisms. They are also coming out some carbon to the atmosphere. We're losing this. And then we have what we export. When we harvest, we can harvest only the wheat and the straw. And if you put the straw in, so we need to know. And then we have the amendments, where we're adding it. So we are producing the net annual CO2 flux. And what's important here, we're seeing here a map over hundreds of kilometers, but at 10-meter resolution. Why? Because practices can change from one plot to one plot. Not even from one farm to one farm, from one plot to from one field to other field. So if you want a quantification, we need to count practices if he's putting carbon in the soil or not. So we're going with 10-meter intra-field resolution, which is a big challenge we worked on since like 3 years now. What's important then, when we do this, what do we see? We see that these are the distribution. I want you to look at the red one there. The red one here, the annual carbon budget that I explained how we obtained it. We see that some pixels are in negative and some in positive. So we are storing carbon, but we also, in many cases, losing carbon at some pixels where the wheat did not grow. And we know this happens all the time. So we need intra-field resolution to go here. And what's interesting that we are providing the uncertainty also. So we see that the uncertainty is lower in some cases than the value of the when we lose. So we are sure that we are losing. It's not only uncertainty. Okay, so now how about we do this over whole France for 1 year, over 500 million pixels. Let's go run this on the French National Center new supercomputer T-Rex, and let's produce this. Let's see if we are capable of doing it. I said in the first slide, we need to go to scaling up the solution, right? It was in yellow. So yes, let's capture the changes from intra-field to national scale by scaling up the solution. And here I made the 3 zooms. And what is interesting is that, oh yeah, we can see that the differences across whole France. We see the big plains of production south of Paris, but also in the southwest, where we come from, Toulouse. I come from Toulouse, working on this. And yeah, okay, we see also the low productivity in areas where we have different type of soils. different types of soils, but also we can see that inside one of the field over whole France, and I don't know the name of the farmer that has this field there, but I can see that in his field, half of it was not producing too much and half it was producing, so the final budget could be negative. Okay? And what is interesting there also, this is for wheat 2019, okay? What is interesting is that now I've done this with a tool that doesn't produce only the biomass, only the net ecosystem carbon. It's producing a set of variables that are all coherent. Because if you do machine learning or tools where you play with one and leave the other one, and then this is not coherent with the other, the solution is not coherent. We want to produce something coherent. This is the advantage of tier 3 combining all this information. So we have biomass, we have annual fluxes here. The biomass, this is dry above ground biomass, so some of it will go to the ground. We need to know how much is done, and this we cannot know with the model. We need information from farming information system that give us the percentage that if there is export or not, but at least we have this because today people use just statistic over the whole area for yield. This is giving biomass and yield per pixel, per plot across whole France. And then net system, but also we have the day of emergence. We have the maturation phase, and we have the senescence phase. This is our sound of temperature. So agronomical information. And so now we see, oh, we can have it a whole France. It's a well full of information that we can analyze, see if it's coherent, and provide it everywhere. So I will finish with this slide. What is most important, actually? This is the most important slide of my presentation. Collaboration to address the challenges. We need to collaborate because if we are speaking about some solution for carbon emissions, it should be generalized. We cannot just do it for one plot, for one region, for 100 kilometers, or for whole France. It should be something that is robust but available globally. So we were working in an Orcaza project. They are putting in place something interesting, a knowledge database with a website called Impact for Soil. I encourage you to go there. We are presenting some demonstrator. We're also happy to include all actions in this. We're doing trial and experiments with farmers. We think that we need to do more of these. It's essentially important. In the first slide I presented, ease of MRV includes trials, demonstrator. We need to integrate the MRV in an MRV framework, and this framework should be accepted, adapted, but accepted at global scale. We need to enhance the applicability and adaptation to context. This means that we need to go different areas. And finally, and this is the thing that I want you also to note, knowledge sharing. We have an international research consortium that is launched in the Orcaza project. Please, if you have, you can join this, contact the Orcaza, you can join this. Also, we are, Eric also is included, Eric Sechia, main collaborator in CESBio, is included in the KEC initiative from NASA and USDA. So we are also trying to work with other research consortiums. Thank you very much.
Our presentations of today's side event has ended. While discussion chairs are being prepared, we open the floor for quite short Q&A time. Does anyone have any have questions about some presentations or some team of KCP? Okay, every single presentation is perfect. So we needed around 25 minutes for open discussions. Thank you. Let's move on some panel discussions. Actually, as a moderator, I prepare some one keyword. Yes, so I'd like to ask Dr. Bitar, And what was the biggest challenge of some supporting the EU's soil carbon farming related to some communicating and collaborating with some local level?
Yes, you pointed out probably a very important point that I didn't dwell too much in my presentation, and thank you for asking this question. In the first slide, I also, the acceptability was also one of the criteria, and it was considered as in yellow, which is not the green. 2 weeks ago, when I was in Toulouse, there was a road blockage by farmers, because they are saying that it is complicated. We have too many administrative aspects to do our work. So agriculture in France and Europe is facing many challenges, and we need to pay attention when we provide solutions to think about them clearly, because these are the main node in this system if you're speaking about soil carbon farming. So when we work with them, the first challenge is that the first time we meet them, they start by telling you, too complicated, everything is too complicated, we would like to work with you, but it's too complicated. And they are just providing information, but you feel that the weight of administrative aspect on them. So we need to optimize our solutions. As I am showing, we are trying to optimize the solution by easing this system. It's not only easing it for the users, final users, but also for the farmers in providing the information. And this and Eric, we discussed so long about in the team that how can we reduce to the max while having something relevant. This is the first. And the second one, we have an in-setting exercise that we're doing with a company called Natayis. And I really like this exercise because it's a true beneficial exercise where farmers are getting incentives based on their practices to the final project. And what I discovered that when you value their work and when the context is well defined, they are much well engaged. And when this engagement is at more local level, regional level, in setting, Jean-François spoke about it, it becomes more interesting for them. They make group of farmers together, they discuss together. I think they are more comfortable in this situation than just the EU asking them to fill out databases.
Thank you.
Why don't we get questions from the floor first, and then because there are.
Let's open the floor for question and Q&A.
Thanks for the interesting presentations. I have a question for you. You presented that you have the 80 towers in Korea now, but you have only roughly 80 towers. But how do you interpolate into the whole country from those 10 points?
Yep. That's a very good point. Thank you for and where are you from?
From University of Tartu, Estonia.
Okay. Actually, our project tried to make that network. So currently we have 6, 4, and 1, but definitely we need to expand the number of the towers. And actually there are already established towers owned by different agencies in Korean government, but they actually are not very willing to share their data. So that is the key point. How can we engage them willing to share the data? And once they open their data, then they have to get the reimburse, but I don't know, some kind of benefit. So that is the part. How can we engage lots of data into this name of Korea Carbon Project? That could be actually a little bit different aspect, not science, but governance or some politics, something like that. So we will try our best to utilize existing towers.
but still, even if you expand, I mean, eddy towers are really expensive. So even if you put, I don't know, 20, 30, you still probably don't cover like all the necessary different ecosystems and soils and stuff. But I assume that the agencies that you were talking about, that they have, I don't know, you complement with chamber measurements or something.
Okay, so supersite, it cannot be like 100 supersites.
Yeah.
Supersite is very limited, but we need to use, like Dr. Yeah, we need to use digital model to expand the spatial, so our measurement data will be used for the validation. So we need to develop a robust model to have spatial data on carbon absorption.
But I guess that was my question. Even to create a model, you need the data to create a model, to calibrate it, and then you validate it. So that was because we are in the same situation in Estonia, that we are pretty much about to create the same thing that you are, but we are also like on top of 3 eddy towers and then some chamber measurements. And we know that we don't cover all the necessary data points to create a robust model, even robust model. So a kind of model we can create, but we know that it's like really, really coarse. So I guess I'm really great that you're like, it's really nice to see that you're trying to do it. It's just interesting that how good is the plan? How do you plan it to cover it? It's really challenging, actually.
Anybody have experience like Ameriflux or? Oh.
Yes, so from my modest experience, and I think we are not there yet 100%, this is why I spoke much about collaboration. When we made this exercise of spatialization in southwest of France, we had eddy towers where were maintained many years by our team. And we actually validated and then expanded. And then we said, okay, very good. Now we want to do over big areas. So what happens if we use the same parameterization, right? So we took this parameterization and we went over the whole ICOS sites in Europe, and where we have wheat. I didn't show this kind of graphs because we are less into the validation, but I will be very happy to just share with you I have them with me, the slides, where we use just the same parameterization over other sites to see if I don't touch if it does do something robust. And it does work for this kind of exercise. We need still to maintain this aspect. We are forcing, assimilating remote sensing, which is enabling us to adapt. Okay, I don't think that this is a final answer, because then you have different conditions, like for wheat, okay, for maize irrigated or something else, or then you have the forest shrubs and stuff. So we still need, but it is encouraging, because we were not expecting, we were expecting to have like per climate condition, and we didn't see this in the need for the data.
Maybe I can complement a bit. So first, Ahmad, you mentioned ICOS. I think we need to explain what ICOS is. Maybe not everybody knows here. So it is the Integrated Carbon Observation System. It is a research infrastructure at European scale. It took decades of efforts to have this, really. Negotiations across governments and with the research organizations, because ICOS, it is long-term. So when you commit to have a flux tower in ICOS, you commit for really a decade or more, and you have to pay for the full cost of the protocol, which is quite demanding. So, one may dream to have this maybe in each country. That would be greatly helpful. But it is true, it is a strong commitment, and it needs funding over many years. Then I'd like to point to something, thank you for your question, which is was not discussed yet, which is about the soil conditions. So what Ahmad you've been presenting, it's really fantastic, but there is one element you did not yet mention, which is coupling with soil carbon models. I know you're doing it, so maybe you can explain it to all, but we found this was really so important. Because in fact, imagine you look at your wheat crops, it could be on a very depleted soil with a small low carbon stock. And in that case, if the crop is healthy, doing well, it's likely you get a lot of soil carbon accumulation. On the other hand, it could be on a soil which is already with a very high stock, and then the soil respiration is higher, and the accumulation of soil carbon, which will be less, or could even, in extreme circumstances, not happen. So you know, we need to incorporate those soil data, and that in itself is a huge challenge. So that's something where, first of all, you need to develop the soil monitoring. That's very important. It's quite costly, so many governments don't want to pay for this, unfortunately. Second, you need to ask farmers for some, let's say, relatively simple measurements of your soil. So you cannot ask them, as Ahmad said, to have hundreds of samples, but at least to have a composite sample over one or a few fields will greatly reduce the uncertainties. And that's for initializing your model. So that's another component we have to factor in.
I'm not the moderator, but he's busy. Oh.
I want to ask the question, do you have any intention to cooperate this method with the national inventory report together so that the project-wise measurement and national measurement will be aligned?
Definitely, we plan to incorporate our method into the national greenhouse gas inventory in the future. And I explained to you, our ultimate goal is to improve our inventory level from tier 1 to tier 3. So if we use tier 3, then our model and our efforts will be rigorously utilized, I hope. And
yes, thank you for your questions. That's very important indeed. And you see, we tried to explain a bit about the carbon credits. The countries need to include what's happening with those soil carbon changes in their national inventories. And this should be consistent with what are the carbon credits. So that sort of consistency is really required. And that's discussed somewhere in this huge meeting where they talk about Article 6.4, which is about the transparency. Well, leave it to the negotiators, I think. But you see, this is quite critical, but also very difficult, because we are then talking about integrating each field into a national inventory. And you can imagine how many fields there are. So that's why your work, Ahmad, is so important, because European Commission said each farmer should have by 2028, that's only within 4 years, the data for the farm emissions and removal. It's very ambitious. And they said, then we will integrate this into the national inventories, making those national inventories tier 3. That's also very ambitious. So we are maybe at a turning point where this may well happen, but here again it will take a lot of investments to get there.
I was anyway, but I don't want to interrupt the discussion if it's related to that topic. I wanted to talk to Ahmad. In your presentation, you showed that you have an active technology transfer in that big project framework, so to say. And I saw also Net Carbon. I know that French company, Net Carbon. And I wanted to ask how you organize that sort of tech transfer, because we believe also that eventually companies can help a lot with direct impact once the science is developed.
Yes. When you provide a solution in the research, it doesn't mean that the work is finished. Actually, probably it's maybe 20-30% of the work. You work maybe 3-4 years to get an innovative idea, to get the criteria, to ask the question and have a readily operational solution. But then you need to face the reality not of the experiments, but the reality of the production or the interaction and all this. Having this managed by a lab of research does not create a good condition, because in this case, you're still in this paradigm. You need to put in the real paradigm of the private sector. So through Struct Transfer, they manage everything about, okay, you're using for this project, licensing and everything. We make sure that we're providing a mature or providing more mature. We make sure also that these projects can help the science. Oh, we don't have white mustard information. We have this project, there will be the data for white mustard, we'll push this action, and then this way we add to the list of complexity. With, you said, speak about at Net Carbon, exactly, Net Carbon are involved with us. We have a CIFR, which is a private sector financed PhD program with them for using planet data and for using radar data. So tomorrow when you see these kind of application, we are presenting some of the aspects in the conferences. It's because of this interaction with them, and we hope that they use this mature part of the solution to provide their own services, and they are already working on in-setting program. So we hope this pushes up to the end, so that we have a full example. We go for this trial demo cycle, right?
Hello. I would like to appreciate, I think this was one of the best panel I had at the COP, and I had been to various pavilion and presentations. So thank you very much, all very, very useful and relevant. But I would like to take you very briefly out of this hardcore research to the socio-economic side of it. I'm a socio-economic researcher, and I had the opportunity to work in over 35 countries in Asia and Africa and Latin America, to work with communities to organize climate resilient solutions. And that was with ActionAid International, an international organization. Currently I work as a consultant, but I also have my own organization, Resilient Future International. And I would like to understand that the capacity of the huge capacity that I see in the room, but also the dearth of capacity that exists in the developing world, in poor countries. And I think that nobody is safe from the climate change unless everybody is safe. So I think there is a big need of collaboration, as you mentioned. What I am trying, I engage with universities, and I try to motivate students and faculty to conduct researches, particularly their thesis, to connect their thesis with climate change. And this is with all departments. I have developed some methodologies where I can connect the climate change challenges with health students, with economic students, with agriculture, and so I'm an agricultural graduate by myself, and others. So I would like to understand that what are your experiences in your countries engaging university students and their thesis into this kind of research, so that when the children go out of the university, they are already reasonably prepared to take on the biggest challenge on the earth. Thank you.
We can give you, so Korean government have several, actually many manpower, how to say, incubating program in undergrad and graduate school. So actually the interests in climate change topics are very high and getting more higher and higher. So undergrad students, they are already quite interested in the topic of climate change. But which country you're from? Oh, Pakistan. So in your, probably the situations will vary in different countries, but in Korean case, you said, I just understood that in every topic like health, culture, everything, we should consider climate change, meaning mainstreaming. It is already happening in Korea. So like, how to say, like students are interested in, but how to mobilize in other countries? Have any experience?
Yes, thank you. Well, I think I really support what you are doing because it's so important to get this commitment of, let's say, the universities to these big challenges. And may I just say that for us in France, it's really the students that are asking this. So there is quite a substantial pressure from the young generation to get that education, and they are quite angry if they don't get it. So it's really interesting because it is moving things very actively. And you know, we have some prestigious engineering schools that were a bit traditional, but now they get to move because of the students. So I think that's really part of the answer. And the other thing is that since it is largely a generational issue, because some of the older academics were not trained in this and they tend to ignore it a bit, you would need also to train, let's say, exactly the leadership. And that's also true for governments. We have now a compulsory leadership training for the French government on climate change, and that's brand new, huh? But it is indeed required because you may have a career in administration or politics, ignoring the data, ignoring the understanding. So all this is highly needed.
Yeah, time is fly. Professor Yu, may I ask you give a very short closing remark for this event? 1 minute.
Yep. Anyway, yep. We were very worried at the first time. The room is too small, and I didn't know a lot of people will be interested in this topic. But at the beginning of our session, there were more people, and they would like to join. And I think they already shared our concerns about MLV, importance of MLV, and how we integrate science with policy. And that is the very good topic in COP28 in Dubai. And I think closing remark will be Dr. Bae, but like very short, like how to say, any comments and any emotional remark at the end for the last. So I'm gonna pass my mic to Dr. Susanna for the.
Yes, thank you so much. So the only thing I have to say is really thank you for that opportunity. We were not aware, I was not aware at least, of this Korean carbon project. I find it extremely nice and extremely relevant. And I wish we can work together in the future. That's really where I see a lot of potential. I must say we have some similar interests from other countries in Asia, and certainly we will try to work together in the best way possible. Thank you.
Dr. Vital?
So I really want to thank the Korean colleagues for organizing this panel. I think that we see here that how the urban soil carbon has been integrated in the KCP projects. And this is very important because we don't see it in the other projects. It's separate, and this continuity is very important. We should try to find ways to work together on these aspects. It's very important, agriculture, urban, and it has two implications. First one is we are quantifying something, it's important. But second, there is a gap between urban and outer of urban, rural societies that are increasing. And finding common questions, common exchanges, sensibilities is important not only for science, it's also for social justice. Social justice links also to climate change. They are all linked together. It's a net. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very timely. And then, but yeah. Feel free to release.
Yeah, Dr. Hyun, he is very fresh doctor.
Yes.
So he will give a short remark.
Yes, I got my PhD this year, so I'm a little nervous. But thank you for Dr. Ahmad and Jang Prasad to accept our invitation, and I hope we keep contact and keep collaborating later. Thank you.
Thank you. On behalf of the KFCP team, I would like to thank you for coming all. I hope you enjoy last COP28. Yeah, thank you.